All right. Good morning, everyone, and thank you to you all for being here almost on time this morning. I know many of you had late nights as I, so I'm glad that we'll still be able to be here today. Let me start by addressing first the biggest story of last night, the election results. First and foremost, I am incredibly humbled and proud that the residents of Baltimore have again entrusted me with the responsibility to lead this great city. I'll echo what I said on primary night that re-election is not just a campaign victory. It's a mandate to double down on the work that we've been doing to build Baltimore's renaissance and keep making our city the best version of itself. We're making a lot of progress on public safety, on equitable neighborhood development, on tackling vacant housing, on modernizing city government to best serve our residents, and of course, investing in our most precious resource, our young people. And we are going to continue to do that and be better this term even than we were in the first. Just as we're showing here today, these results that we're getting right back to work is what we're going to be doing. But we're not missing a beat. But we did make history here in Maryland last night, where we decided to send our first U.S. Senator, who just happens to be a woman in black, and Angela Also Brooks, to D.C. We enshrined here in Maryland a woman's right to choose in our state constitution, and we saw several major wins on ballot initiative. Finally, something that I started when I was first elected in the city council has come to an end. Baltimore will now control its own police department, and that work is finally done. And of course, the outright rejection of a MAGA billionaire trying to buy power in Baltimore City with question H failing. Question F passed in Baltimore City, and we will see a new inner harbor. Baltimore is in many ways stood up for what we know to be right. We voted for progress, and we set ourselves up to keep being a city that takes on the biggest challenges that its residents face. And we did that in the face of a lot of critics, a lot of money, and a lot of lies. But this morning, I am proud of Baltimoreans and our Old Bay Spice grit. And we know that we're going to need that grit moving forward. As it pertains to the presidential election, I am obviously extremely disappointed in the results, but it is clear that there will be a second Trump presidency. It is really on my heart this morning to say that as a man, but more importantly as a black man, that this country does not deserve black women or black people, but specifically black women. This morning I woke up and I just gave my wife a hug because I know how heavy this is weighing on black women. And they have carried this country and saved this country too many times and continue to be the most disrespected human beings on the planet. And it, quite frankly, it disgusts me. I'm thinking about the world that we're going to bring our daughter into in a few months. And I want the vice president to know that her and her team did everything right in the right way. But the unfortunate reality is that this country is still steeped in racism, sexism, and misogyny. I am personally proud of her, and I know that so many others are the same. We appreciate her tenacity, her focus, her decency, and how she handled herself throughout this campaign. And I don't want to hear anybody saying that they should have done something different, she should have been running longer. The fact is that they did everything that a campaign can do and more. But we as a country really have a lot of soul searching to do. And that's really what I want to say about that today. But I want black women to hear from me to know that as a black man, I am going to triple my efforts to lift them up, to make sure that they're supported, to make sure that they're seen, and to make sure that other folks are challenged into understanding that they alone can't be the soul of this democracy, and that they alone can't save us from ourselves time and time again. They alone can't be the people that show up and show up in such a way that folks who are voting against their own best interest, that they are saved as well. They can't do it anymore. And we have to be there to understand that reality and lift them up. I don't know everything that a second Trump presidency will bring to Baltimore, but if he follows through on some of his dark, violent promises, we know that we are looking at challenges in the years ahead. But I want Baltimoreans to hear me clearly. We have a lot to be proud of in our leadership in the state and in the city. And I know all of my colleagues in office will agree when I say that Baltimore will always be a place that welcomes and protects our residents, no matter what they look like, who they love, where they were born, or how they choose to live their lives, as long as they're doing it in a legal manner. That will not change, and I will continue fighting for Baltimoreans no matter what. But before we jump into the remaining items for today, let's do our usual overview of where we stand in terms of public safety. Homicides are down 25% year over year compared to last year, which you all know was an historic reduction of 20%. Non-fatal shootings are down 35%. Carjackings are down 12%. Auto thefts are down 45%. Total violent crime is down 8%. And total property crime is down 20% in Baltimore. The progress that we've seen here has absolutely been helped and aided by our partners in the White House and our fabulous congressional delegation. It will get harder now. Let's make no mistake about that. But that will not deter our work, and Baltimore is going to have to come together to work harder to ensure that we maintain this progress for our residents, no matter what's happening on the national stage. I believe that we can do it, and I will fight every single day to make it so. And with that, we'll take questions. Yes, sir, Tyler.
What was the key to question H failing?
I think, Tyler, as I think I may have said this to you before, I know I said it to Emily. I think that folks think that Baltimoreans are stupid, and we're very smart. People in Baltimore see through all the deceit, all the lies, all the constant bias, political hack job reporting and stories that come out. They see through it. And what the key was is that folks know who was doing it and why they were doing it. And Baltimoreans rejected it. Just like they rejected all of their candidates in the primary election, they rejected this and have sent a signal that Baltimore is not for sale. Baltimore can't be bought. Our democracy can't be bought. No matter how many stations or newspapers you buy up, we are going to do what we believe is the right thing, not what someone tries to dictate to us is the right thing.
We just heard from two people in leadership at BOPA who were pleading for more time. You had a sort of quick response shutting that down, voting to terminate that contract. Why were you so decisive in that?
I think we were so decisive because my job is to make sure that the money, taxpayer money, that Baltimoreans entrust is spent in an appropriate way. It's unfortunate some of the things that were said today, but let me be very clear. The city did not owe them money. We operate on the contract in a quarterly manner. We continue to do that. But I think it's important to note, Tali, that things that were mentioned today could have been mentioned. To me personally, it would be different if folks didn't sit and meet with me and talk to me and never say that they were having financial problems, right? The residents of Baltimore deserve better, and we look forward, as we just met with their team on Monday, how we're going to transition to look at how all the things with the arts community is going to happen, including what happens with BOPA moving forward. But we are not renewing the contract.
I need to talk a little bit about the residents voting to have BPD under local control. What are the next steps and the path forward to make sure that that transition happens? Like, what does that transition look like, and will there be any immediate changes?
So I think that it's key to note, and we'll send you the exact information so that you have that we passed a law last year with the General Assembly that essentially, once the voters made this decision, took what was in public local law at the state level as far as the operations and management of BPD, and now that will be in city law, right? So that big work was actually already done. We just needed this one last step from the voters, and now after that, it goes like to be like any other city agency as far as the council being able to legislate things that obviously wouldn't be precluded by state law.
So any immediate changes?
So not for us, because we did that tough work of making a lot of those changes as we were passing that law at the state level to move over, and then we'll be seeing what we need to change moving forward. Sorry, go ahead.
With the vote earlier today on BOPA, I just want to clarify, with that vote, has the city severed its ties with BOPA as its official arts council, or is that going to be done with further legislation, and who will fill that role?
So this is all a part of about the transition, and rather, as you heard even from them today, about whether they keep the arts designation or what those things, all of that will be worked out as we go through the transitional period.
Gotcha. Okay. And did want to ask about, there was a mention of $500,000 in grant money going to artists from the Baltimore Civic Fund. Could you just explain a little bit more about that?
We will send you that information directly, but I will just say this, that ARPA grant was not executed. Oh, sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Financial management was a key concern with BOPA. You just brought that up. So will you, moving forward, be taking a hard look at any other city spending?
We look hard at all city spending. I think that that's what we do consistently, and we know when it's not being done in the right way, right? You heard from the auditor today about some things that we found, and we are going to have a new towing system, data system, to make sure that those kind of taxpayer dollars are being spent in the better way. That's what we do consistently, but I think it's important to note that that's why you hear me talk all the time about putting systems in place, because we have agencies that have been dealing with archaic systems for a long time.
So do you plan on looking at any agencies, budget items, partnerships in particular when it comes to that?
Any and every public dollar.
You talked about going into, continuing Baltimore's renaissance in your second term. Is there anything now that you've been able to look at in your first term with a bit of self-criticism or reflection and say you want to do better or differently in the second term?
Everything. I want to be perfect, Emily. I'm an athlete. Like I said to one of your colleagues in media, I don't just want to win. I want to win by 30 points, right? We want to be better in everything. I want to turn this 25% reduction in homicides into a 50% reduction or a 6. We want to keep going until there is 0, right? That's everything that we can do better. Is the focus is to be better in everything every day, from picking up trash to filling potholes to repaving streets to how we operate rec centers to how our schools operate. Everything has to be better.
Congratulations, Mayor, on the career there. Wanted to ask you if you had any intention of establishing any sort of line of communication with President-elect Trump, being that there is a lot of federal money kind of tied up with the Key Bridge, Red Line, and any plans for that? Well,
listen, I think that this is how this works, right? We have to work with who's in office, and when the president-elect gets there, if his folks reach out to the city, we will answer the call. But if this second term is anything like the first, we should expect Baltimore to, again, become a political football, which doesn't benefit anybody in Baltimore or the United States.
One more question. With the local publication shuttering their features department and the contract now done with BOPA, what would you say to people in the arts community who may feel like they don't have an outlet or a voice anymore? Will there be an avenue for that?
Well, I think that yes, there will be, and there will continue to be through my office and others as we work to see what happens with, quote unquote, the stuff that BOPA was doing. But that local publication isn't the only one. They should sign up for the Baltimore Banner and demand that they take over that, right? We have to make sure there's other publications here. You have the Afro, you have the Baltimore Times, you have the Baltimore Beat, you have all these folks that are operating the way that true media should operate, to put out that kind of information. And that's what we're going to do. But it's also critically important to me, which is why we're going to be doing this transition, to make sure that those artists and those folks still have their ability to have their work seen and also be heard.
What's the official end date for BOPA? What did this set in motion today?
I will give you that. I can't remember the specific dates of the contract. We'll send it to you. Yeah. I can't remember that. I try to remember every contract date, but I can't, especially not today.
I had another question, a valid question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Question F was approved by voters last night. What do you see as the city's next steps for redeveloping Harbor Place?
Well, now we actually have to get these things moving, right? We have to, obviously, after last night, be thinking about funding and how those things are going to work. There's going to be obviously more zoning and other issues that have to happen with the new city council. So this is just the beginning of that work, but we're very excited that the residents were able to vote for that and saw through that and saw even through some of the racist things that were done and said, tax, referring to me as a monkey, right? Those kind of things that we saw just had no place in this debate, but we're glad that the residents saw through it and supported it.
WJC or WMR in the back. And then banner has got one.
You had brought up question, or sorry,
No.
you had brought up question H, and you said that, the residents are smarter than people are giving them credit for, and that they know who's behind this. Given that David Smith is the chief, fundraiser behind that, what do you think this means for any future ballot questions that he may propose? We already saw him finance term limits. There's probably more coming. What does this opposition campaign that was successful last night mean for those future efforts?
It means that we can defeat folks who have unlimited airtime, unlimited print, and seemingly unlimited money. All we have to do is tell our residents the truth and communicate with them the right way, and we can win.
Okay.
Do you anticipate city funding going into the redevelopment at Harbor Place? When we were talking about it, as we passed it through the council, it was state and federal money on the table. Do you anticipate the city kicking in?
We that position has not changed for us for any of the private portions. Obviously, the public portions like the parks and things that we're already doing, like Rashville, and that we will the promenade stuff that we would have to do, we would have to fund anyway and figure that out. But we have not changed on the broader development. Anybody else?
And the city council elects acceptance speech
Oh, see.
last night, Z. Cohen. He said, quote, he's looking forward to a much cleaner, smoother, more professional Baltimore city council. What do you glean from those comments?
Well, it's not for me to say. I haven't been on the city council for over 5 years now, right? But I think what he's probably talking about is some of the similar things that I was talking about when I took this seat the first time, making things work in a more 21st century fashion. But I can't speak to what he's talking about. I just look forward to working with him in the new council.
2 more.
You had referenced, sort of some trepidation about working with the Trump administration based on the way that it went last time. Is there any specific funding that you think could potentially be in jeopardy as a result of his election?
Yeah, I think that we should think about it all, right? We have to think about what the Biden-Harris administration, what they've invested into Baltimore's violence reduction strategy. We have to think about the Key Bridge. We have to think about the Frederick Douglass Tunnel. We have to think about the Howard Street Tunnel. We have to think about the Red Line. We have to think about the Highway to Nowhere. All of those things could just go away, right? And we have to have people have to understand how serious and how real the implications are for the city of Baltimore.
In terms of question E, you said that there were no
Which questions? Question E?
question E.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah,
You said that there were no immediate changes that you plan to put in place, but looking long-term, are there any policy changes that you're looking at or support you plan to get for the police department?
Well, listen, we'll continue to support our police department. As I said earlier, when there needs to be policy changes about how the department operates, we will take them up. But you may not have been around for that time, but I spent a lot of time as a legislator getting those policies changed through Annapolis, like police redistricting, like civilianization. We worked on body cameras, all of those things. If there are more significant ones that needs to come, we will be there to make the through. But right now, it's about making sure that this city and this city's voters have the same, and their legislative representatives have the same power that every other jurisdiction in this state had, and that every other jurisdiction in this country, save for one, have already. And that's what this effort has been about for me since December the 9th of 2011. And what we're going to be doing now is focusing on how we continue to have our police department be a part of the biggest reduction in violence that Baltimore has ever seen, making sure that they have the tools that they need, making sure that we work to ending our consent decree and making Baltimore a safer place. Thank you, everybody.